Oh, Jane. Looks like we have a script here called Facing Up. Facing Up. Down. Considering the last ones are something down. There's 8 of these, but the middle part of the series is basically 2 or 3 episode parts, so it's more than 8. It's probably closer to 12 because there's 2-parters, but it's counted as 8. This is a single part. This is a pilot. Earlier, before Starship Locations meets the Transformers, before that I put it up the scripts with only a vaguest of intent of doing them originally. We were like, I don't know whether we want to tackle another season of Alt Transformers MUSH and do that. I don't know. It's like we wanted to do another thing, spoof Picard, do whatever. We're like, no, I think we do want to do a 3rd season. So it is now May. The production begins on probably likely May the 4th day. May the 4th, May the 2nd is coming up tomorrow. But yeah, sure. Yeah. These scripts are different than the other ones. They were from Lexicon. They're in the, which is the descendant of Alt Transformers MUSH. One of them, anyway. The other descendants of Alt Transformers MUSH, including tformers.com and Cybertron with an S and a couple of others. Lexicons is one of the other ones that has a lot of the fan fiction and also the Slash. Yeah. And the author of these 2 stories is Bobby Carruthers, who you might recognize from the first season, Transitions, which was changed to Transitions of Wrath. It's about the Wrath planet. Her original story was not. It was about Springer and RC and Chassis. This is kind of an origin story of Chassis, but the origin story, it appears that it has been edited out. It's first 2 pages of it flashback to the origin, and it looks like I have said, no, let's not do that. If you want to do like a dream sequence or something, let's not do that. There's a Bludgeon toy that's supposed to be involved in it. However, I think we can change that to the Sweep Scourge guy instead, because it makes more sense. Yeah. Because I don't want to open the Bludgeon toy. It's a Bludgeon from generations like during the Michael Bay movies. And that particular toy is actually worth something. So if he's like in a box somewhere, I'm going to leave him in there. Because, yeah. What's interesting about some of these is they are from the recent toy show. Some of these guys, the toy show. So that's cool. We have a Springer that appears to be the Kingdom Rise Springer, and we have there's the Kingdom Springer, and we made Springer in Transitions sound kind of like Batman. It's Batman. It was a little less like Batman and more like Clint Eastwood. This one, so just to make him sound a little more. Still get that breathy voice, but sounds a little less like Batman, because that's like, yeah. This is like a kind of a younger Springer, pseudo other universe Springer. This is our Bike RC reissue from Legends. Transformers Legacy. Transformers Legacy is the new toy line. And we have a few of them here, and it immediately snapped off. This part snapped off. So I have to get another one. So yeah, and not snap that piece off because I do not know how it goes back on. And I have to get very carefully out of the box and see where that snaps back on, because otherwise it's kind of goofy. Let's supposed to sit there. Don't know. Yeah. It's kind of problematic if parts of her come off. And, so yeah, slight technical difficulties on the set. But yes, Target does have another one. I can go and get another one. Yeah, so I have, the Fuse Awesome Reviews had a Road Rage and a Skids, Masterpiece Skids and a regular Road Rage. I say it was a Masterpiece Road Rage. I didn't win them, so I didn't win them. No, somebody else did. But I found the Skids and Road Rage. They came out, so I have the Skids. I don't have the Skids. This is a toy. I don't have the Skids. No Chipotle meals causing the actual Skids. Road Rage makes more sense as the archetypal jazzy slash other character chassis anyway. So yeah, so you can tie in the whole generation together if you want. We can do whatever we want. Jane Piedmont script, you can usually mess with it a little. This is the Moon Racer, Night Racer Chromia. It should be Chromia technically. Moon Racer. That can be chassis. That would be more consistent with the timeline. Yeah. So the timeline. So, from the toy show. And the Springer is from the toy show. And we also have this guy. They've made Bulkhead Tim. So we have Tim Bulkhead. Oh, picture. Oh, yeah. Oh, there we go. He's not playing him though. And we have a nice, clean, pristine version of Galvatron. Not the one from the other story, but a reissue of the Legends Legacy Galvatron. That looks a clean one. The other one's still in there. The other one, actually, the Beast Wars Kingdom one, had this little thing here popped out, so the hand kept falling off. This is why the hand was just wedged in there. Or, the other guy. This guy is fine though. This one's good. You might want to get the Laser Optimus Prime reissue if that's out there. You might want to get that. I don't think he's in this pilot anyway, so you don't need it yet. But and we have the other ones from Legacy. We're mainly going to use the Legacy characters and Kingdom characters, which are in the box. There's a box back here with the Kingdom characters from the Tiger Track and all that, and Night Razor, the black car, and all those from that series, as opposed to cracking open the older ones, just to give it a kind of a thematic, similar feel with similar scaled guys doing things. The Abra and Kadabra Black Cats, of course. But in this version, Cheetor's Houdini. So yeah, this version they made him different. So the Transformers meet Star Trek is not technically the pilot of this series. It was sort of done on its own. We included sort of it's its own thing, because the Star Trek characters behaved in ways that weren't really Star Trek. Starship Locations characters behaved in ways that were a little odd. We had Shadow Dancer behaving a little like evil almost. He wanted to like torture Galvatron and stuff and take parts out of him. And Mahoney was okay with that. He needed to get home, so. But yeah, that's messed up. Even though they're not Decepticons, so the Federation wouldn't do that. But yeah, the original story of that particular episode, or that segment, was that it was supposed to be Star Trek 4 meets Star Transformers the movie in the original story, and that just didn't make sense as a salvage that it was them. But if it was my own characters, it was Starship Locations, and they were sort of semi-Voyager characters, which are ambiguous anyway, morally ambiguous anyway, then it worked. It worked perfectly for Vince to do that, because he's a little off, and Shadow to do that, because he's a little off, character-wise. So, It made sense. The other one was the sort of a Cisco figure playing Javantal, and for those of you who are really deep canon on that one, Javantal is the name of one of the hosts of Tal, Trill, from the Picard era, pictured in the Idiratal's dream sequence on the Trill planet in Discovery season 3, and he was a Starfleet captain, looked like Cisco. So I said, well, you see that he exists in Starship Locations, so he's on the planet, and yeah. So we were seeing him as he appears in 2400 or so, 2403, roughly. So yeah, cool. Yes. The characters of Molly and Miral are still married. They're yeah, and yeah, and that's not really addressed, but it's just kind of, they're kind of angsty in it. The main characters don't get to do much. Well, we do have a Nog playing Quark, because originally it was Deep Space Nine. It was Cisco, Nog, Kira, and Odo, and the Deep Space Nine people, and they were encountering Swindle in that particular segment. And we decided, okay, well, they can do that, but it shouldn't be Odo, Kira, and Cisco, because that was 30 years ago. So it's these new characters. That way, also, that fixes the ambiguity as well. It says, Nog might do these things and talk to this alien robot. We know nothing about Nog after Deep Space Nine. Our story tends to retcon Ira Bear's and Berman's less than stellar What You Left Behind pilot, make fun of it, because we did Starship Strange Worlds basically to say that doesn't make sense. Here's what we would do. Here's what fans would want to actually see a follow-up to DS9, where Nog has his own ship. It's named Till. It's a slightly later one. I guess he destroyed the first one in the Chimera in the 90s. So it did happen that it got destroyed, but he wasn't killed. It's a silly in space. And because he couldn't be killed, because they remember him 700 years later as his name on a ship in Star Trek Discovery, season 3 and 4. So he's on the name of a ship. He didn't die way back when. He stayed around for a while, at least 20 years, if not more. And they remembered Nog years later, hundreds of years later, as this great captain, and named the ship after him. So Nog survives, because even Aaron Eisenberg, before he died, said, "Why did they kill my character?" I was annoyed by that. And I've met Aaron Eisenberg, convention, Mark's cards, and I met him. And before all that happened, of course, many years ago. And yeah, he was fun. He was cool. The guy that played Icheb was a little not as cool, but a little more sarcastic. He was all right. But yeah, but Aaron Eisenberg was cool. Yeah, he died too soon. He was too young. Shouldn't have. Aaron Eisenberg. Yeah, that just sucks. Anyway, so yeah, same thing with Anton Yelchin, who also died young. This sucks too. So I think Eisenberg died of some kind of medical condition or something, and Anton Yelchin was in an accident. So yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So this is Lexicons, and the name is a play on Legacy, but it's also a play on Lexicon website, where these 8 or 9 scripts were found. There were initially 21 of them, short stories all the way up to novellas. These are the novella ones. There were 4 other novellas that were rejected, straight up, just rejected. We can't do these. We wanted to, I think I mentioned in many of the other making reviews that for Lexicons that I wanted to do the T.L. Aarons, because I had a short story of T.L. Aarons stuck on the end of one of the other stories from way back. I think it was around Valentine's Day of 2020 or something like that. And 2021 it might have been. And so there was this scene where the Ultra Magnus and his significant, he's got a secret admirer. That was actually T.L. Aarons' most innocent story. It turns out after that, he got kind of angsty and dark, and we just couldn't include any of his later stuff. Now, that'd be fair, on his regular website, the one that you can't copy from because he's rigged it that way, there are some nice short stories about quintessons and invasions and stuff that aren't bad. But for the most part, he likes the gory stuff, and he likes the slashy stuff. And even though we've done Alt Transformers MUSH and we've dealt with darker themes and things like that, we've dealt with robots having issues involving an assault, rape, and all kinds of things, depression, PSTD, a lot of PSTD, and dissociative disorder and space hallucinations and all kinds of things. They've all dealt with that. But going that far and doing actual shipping where the characters are murdering each other and because they don't like each other, or they were ex-girlfriends or something, or ex-boyfriend, robot versions of them or whatever. It's like, okay, that's a little too far. The Transformers MUSH is not a kids show by any stretch. It's not for kids, no copper thing, but it is also not really adults either. It's sort of man-children, and we kind of want to keep it PG-13. So, Oryx Cards and I agreed with that when he saw some of the T.L. Aarons footage and said, the stories, and said, yeah, you probably don't want to use this. So we agreed on that one. It's too bad, really, because some of it was clever, but it would be like, it would be demonetized if it was monetized. But yeah, some of the other stuff was a little weak. There were stories that kind of repeated themselves. There were ones that were too much Generation 2. There were ones where two Mary Sue, the main characters were Mary Sues, and that's when you put yourself into character in the story. But even though this story here is Bobby Carruthers, she puts a Mary Sue of Chassis in there. She's written in a way that makes her sympathetic. She's not all-encompassingly indestructible. She's actually kind of flighty. She's not indestructible. She has a story, issues, and backstory. And this is actually a slightly retconned version of her because the 90s version of Chassis. And the names are odd. I know the names are odd, but considering in G1 Wheeljack, why did they name that guy Wheeljack? He's named Wheeljack. That's like, no. And there was a guy named Gears. So there have been some odd names. There was Huffer, of course. The Decepticons had cool names like Starscream and Thundercracker and Megatron. But the Autobots had these weird car names that sometimes didn't make sense. Sunstreaker's a cool name now, but also could be misconstrued entirely out of context. Sunstreaker, okay. Sideswipe. Things cars do, I guess. But yeah, the idea that the Chassis was originally more of a broken hero character who was redeemed by Springer and RC and Hot Rod, figuring out her emotions and stuff and fixing her. Actually, in the original story, she dies. In Transformers Transitions of Wrath, she's actually dead. And so it's not only, that was really dark. That was the darkest one, I think, of all the G1 Alt Transformers MUSH stories we did. Darkest, but not slashy, just dark. And it had to have a PSA warning in the beginning of it. The fembots telling you, okay, this story's going to be dark. Transitions of Wrath. The original story is called Transitions, if you want to go read it. You can find it online on Lexicons and in other places. Not on ours. On our typed up channel site, we don't include our Google sites and things. And our WordPress, we don't include, if we have a WordPress, kind of do, I think. We don't include Transformers fanfics and archives. We've got other archives for other stuff. Bullshito and stuff like that. Archives. But we don't include Transformers fanfics because they're someone else's they wrote. So we don't want to get into trouble with whoever these people are and say like, why is my fanfic up on your website? Doesn't make sense. Considering the the Fallen Ones story, which is literally a fanfic version of Jason Colavito's Fallen Ones stories, that we made into a season of Chimera, or Starship Locations. The second season of, well, we had Strange Worlds being the first season. We had the second season, which is the Fallen Ones, which was an adaptation of an already existing story, based on a story by Colavito, based on several blogs by Colavito, but just the blogs and the bloggers, not him. And Colavito PM'd the site from the Google site, and yeah, he had gone on there, and he didn't know about the stories. He just said, okay, the Amazon storybook, the one that's the Amazon one. Don't put my name on. I had nothing to do with your story, your Fallen One story, except that you can say inspired by me and that kind of thing, and based on my stuff. But I had nothing to do with writing that. So take my name byline off there. You did not co-write this with me. You just took the story and run it. And I'm okay with that. But yeah, just take my byline off. Yeah. Yeah, I know Cal. I know who that is. So take that off. And okay, we'll take that off. Yeah, so we took that off. So the byline's not there. It's just listed in the credits. And then we went on to do the Star Trek story. Because we took the byline off, and then, well, let's do the Star Trek story. So then we went and did the Fallen Ones as a Star Trek story adaptation of that. And the story already existed, so there were all these complications with, we'd never re-release it because obviously we'd get in trouble. There was no pictures involved. So if you think of pictures, there were no pictures. It was artwork. I did the artwork. So this author just didn't want trying to get some kind of monetization out of a video that he had nothing to do with writing, which is totally cool. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So if he had nothing to do with the cow story, if he disowns it basically and says it isn't mine, it's not mine, that's cool. Yeah. So the character of Vita Cola is him, basically in the story. There's some other characters in there as well. Yeah, and then after the Fallen Ones, yeah, so it was no problem. So it was taken off. Also, Mark's Cards noticed that too, and he said, "You don't want to say you're a co-author. You don't need to say that." So Mark's Cards also noticed it at the same time. So you don't need to do that. Yeah, and I know why we did it initially, because so much of that blog was his blog that had been transposed into that story as the Cillian original Strange Worlds, the Cillian story, and so much of it was part of that blog. I felt like I should give him complete credit for having done half of it, but nope, he didn't want it. He said nope, he might. Understandable. He didn't want to make it. He's gonna lose money or something. You know, yeah, it would be. Yeah, it's like I don't want to take any money from this other online author guy. You know, so I wasn't trying to. Yeah, so I was like, okay, I will not only do that, I will make the book free. So if they go to that one, they can just look at it. How about that? That too. So it's the cheapest one. It's not quite free, but it's the cheapest one. Yeah, it's I think it's like on Amazon for $2.99. So nobody's going to complain, and it's not selling. So those two are, yeah, those Fallen Ones stories are $2, $3 a book if you want to watch on Kindle. That's not going to hurt anybody's revenue, or less. But yeah, so yeah, there wasn't any problem. So yeah, it was about the Fallen Ones and Ancient Aliens. Enough of it was, you know, in those commentaries, enough of it was all commentary. So enough of it was, there was, yeah, that it was not a problem, the commentary on that. Kind of the same thing here, in that these are stories that so many people posted on Lexicon, including this person. It's yeah, Nappy Crothers. Yeah. They could theoretically say, I don't want this adaptation of my story up here. They could say that. They could say, I don't want to do this. want to be on your fan film thing. It hasn't happened, but that could happen. In this case, we could have one of them say, my story up there. Nobody has. There have been 2 seasons of Alt Transformers MUSH, and nobody has complained. So there were PMs. There were comments on occasion, wondering if I was a shill for Hasbro. That was funny. I got one wrong. I stuck a character from another character on the Rodimus Primal site. The guy that wrote the Netflix show was apparently actually in contact with him. I didn't know that. I was guessing that he wasn't, because that doesn't seem... And they contacted him. I won't name his name. But, so... he's like, no, I'm real. I wasn't him, but the guy, I think it was Santos or something. Something like that. But yeah. Some of them thought I was involved in the Netflix series. No, we're not involved. It's just that a lot of the backstory stuff through those other sites we kind of knew was going to happen. Because they're basically cribbing it from War for Cybertron, bits of it, and they're cribbing it from the TF-formers and the Radio Free Cybertron, and mainly War for Cybertron. The War for Cybertron Netflix show is cribbing from the game, kind of, and doing its own thing. So that's where they were getting the elements of it. So if you wanted to know where I was getting it, it's just that. No secret. That's what it was. I don't know what the new one. There's a couple of other new ones coming out. There's there's Lexicons, and there's another cartoon show. I haven't seen much of the people asking, did you see any of Cyberverse? I've seen a little bit of Cyberverse. It's a little too washed out. That's the right word for it. The art style doesn't have hardly any shading, and they're just washed out looking. And that's really hard to look at. Although Combiner Wars was a mess. I have seen Combiner Wars. Yay, I have seen all of it. And yeah, my version's better. We can say that right out. My version's way better. Their version has more combining, but they don't do anything with it. So in my version of it, when they show the combiner planet Caminus, I just don't show them combining because that's not interesting. I thought, well, the characters are interesting, the stories. See, Michael Bay had it completely wrong. I come at these stories from the vantage point of let's show characters in an interesting format. Almost like in a Star Trek. So it made sense to do a Star Trek meets Transformers. It made sense to have a story where unlike the Michael Bay movies where he's trying to do a sitcom with a family that's wacky and make it with Transformers in the background, not doing anything interesting. Megatron, Prime, and everybody. Not doing really anything interesting, cracking jokes. Bumblebee pees on a guy, in the pilot. Whatever. And it's like, ooh, that kind of weird stuff. And it's like, or there's a Humpy Dog one in part 2, I think. A Humpy Dog robot. Or was it? Yeah, it was 2, yeah. And then there was like, in 3 had, other problems. 3 had a humpy dude in it. 3 was the one with the guy, the guy mistook a guy was an obsessed fan, wanted Shia LaBeouf, tried to hump him. What the heck? Michael Bay, okay, that's not Transformers, that's slash fiction. If you want to do slash fiction, do that. But yeah, so I had a premise, and we're like, So yeah, we had this robot thing, we had this storybook, the Lexicons, the idea is that the Transformers have a backstory, and these fan fiction stories where they've written large ones, like novella-sized ones, we make into these hour-long episodes. These character studies. They're all character studies of Transformers, and whether they're morally ambiguous or not. Autobots and Decepticons is not necessarily delineated. Some of the Autobots are evil. There's like story about gender and race and politics, but not done in a way that hits them over the head, because the earlier stories from MUSH were done in the 90s, Well, that wasn't a thing yet, and or at least the woke stuff wasn't a thing yet. And these stories only go up to about 2004, so this still hasn't happened yet. So the agenda, if there is one, is not a problem because they don't really address it. Legend. So sure. Part of the problem with this might be that reading who's who, it might be difficult. But I think we can do this in a way that there aren't like names, place names above each character, because it's written like a novel. It's not written like a script. But I think we should be able to tell. And if you do it like you're doing the second season, was basically just read the script. Here's what the script on this page might say. Let's just do this and then go. That's how we were able to get through those quickly. So I'll do that here. We won't read the dialogue like earlier and then go on, because we tried that once with that Halloween special in 2020. That was a 2020, yeah. Fallen Kingdom. Incidentally, there's a sequel. One of these 8 stories is a Fallen Kingdom sequel. That's awesome. And it's called Tragic Kingdom, as Mark Scards pointed out. That's actually a song. So that's awesome they're using that as a title. So yes, Tragic Kingdom. It is a sequel. So somebody else wrote it. It's not the original guy. Yeah, so we have somebody named Chromia that wrote some of these. So we've kind of got the Chromia / chassis character writing episodes of the story of herself. That's pretty meta. This is, not really, but somebody playing her. Somebody was inspired by her, let's say. Same thing with Rakshi and Rahakshi, the 2 different Rakshis. And that was just because we misspelled her name, so we decided, in the second season, we can fix that by saying there were 2 of them the whole time. And actually, that, unlike in Star Trek Picard, stuff like that, it actually made sense in our story. They are robots. Why wouldn't there be other models of them? Even though earlier on she was cloned from the thing, and she apparently was only one model, but they kept implying that she was in 2 places at once anyway, so it kind of works. It's like if her ninja other self was actually secretly there the whole time, then okay. Maybe it was the ninja one doing it. Maybe it was Rakshi doing it the whole time with an H. Or it's supposed to Rakshi with an H on the other end. Ew. And somebody had pointed out in a comment, they said, the original person who played Rakshi, the actual person that was inspired for that, not the Jazzy lady, that's somebody else, but Jazzy too. They're a little weird. Well, I did not comment back to that. I said, well, it's a little crazy. It was that but I said, like, yeah, but they're all socially awkward, or they wouldn't be. Doesn't matter. I don't know who it is. That's not a problem. And there was another comment about, like, I had done a I think a season 2 story in which one of the short stories that was collected to make an episode, because there were short stories collected to make episodes in the second season. They were all collected together. Different people were together. Muth and Lizard came together. And a bunch of them other ones. There was a Powers one or 2 of those Powers ones. There was even a Cantrell one, a Kla Kat one, and stuff, and they were all come together. And there was this one guy, Winterford or something. Yeah, there was this one other author, short story guy, who apparently went on to do slashy stuff too, misogynistic stuff too later on. I don't know the guy's name specifically. I can't remember it right now, but it doesn't matter. Because some of the people on T-Formers had commented on him, not on me directly, saying, "Oh, you never want to use his stories anymore. He's weird. This guy. He says messed up stuff, and he got kicked off of T-Formers boards and stuff, TF boards and whatever." It's like, I didn't care. I just used his old story from when he was in college. Yeah, I didn't know him. But yeah, I was like, so I did. The story was fine. I mean, you could theoretically just not shoot the parts that are the slashy scene that comes up where somebody gets like brutalized, you don't want to shoot that. Just don't. The story's going to be a little angsty though. Angsty. This one was done in 2000. Let's see, 2002. It doesn't say, but I think it was 2002. And 2000. So this is a little after that other one. Around 21 March. So this has been sitting around since March 21st. Yeah, and before the Trek meets Transformers, we almost weren't going to do it. But I think we're going to do this. Sure, this will be new season. Mostly because there's not a lot of content on Transformers for men, children, and there's not a lot of market for the stuff that the X generation wants to see, like Transformers discussing their longevity and whatever, and stories, and natures, and gender, and politics and things. That makes sense. Not boring politics. Transformer politics, the war, the space war, and everything. Because I tend to put modern stuff in your story, like Gene Roddenberry, the humanist, would be all for that kind of thing. Oh, put the modern stuff. It's kind of like that modern Star Trek kind of gets wrong. They think merely by mentioning an issue, that's how Roddenberry did it, but they don't stop to think that that's not how he did it. Just having them like have an episode where they show angry ICE people, ICE people, and say they're bad, and have them shout that in an episode, and then not do anything after that after they get away. That's not making a reference to modern times so much as saying we have a sledgehammer and we're going to whomp you over the head with a sledgehammer of this idea. Here's this idea. But don't worry about it, because next episode we'll do something else about the nature of melancholy. We'll do that instead next week. And we'll hit you over the head with that too. And it's like, okay, or we'll do PSTD or something, or Q as his powers gone or something, or in Discovery we'll have gender fluid characters but not do anything with them, so we'll have one of them leave and come back and pretend like they're a couple, even though they wouldn't be, because they're playing like they're straight, but they're not. Because they wanted to hit you over the head with the idea without actually knowing how to do it. See, you do the idea and you know how to do it. It's not like in the Team America movie where Spotswood and Gary are going to do some oral sex. They don't show it. It's not like that. It's like, don't show it, but it's more like, okay, you have, if you want to do an issue story and you have two gay characters, for instance, Star Trek, and you show them being affectionate, not hit them over the head saying, oh no, we'll do super duper into this, and not necessarily they're making out like on screen for 10 minutes to gross you out, because they're not doing it to gross you out. They're just a couple. That's the way to do it, and just they think nothing of it. Oh, they're a couple. That's yeah. Roddenberry probably wouldn't have done that, but he would have been about, like, he kind of addressed it, actually. There was the Next Gen episode where Riker had a transgendered girlfriend character on a planet where they didn't allow that. Yeah, so they have addressed that. And in that episode, they basically do and they do the Morlon thing. They transform her anyway, because they're assholes on the planet. I know that the Orville also did that, but the Orville episode was just cribbing from a Canary Space episode, one of mine, and and they were just showing like these Tatamis alien guys that switched gender, forced them to switch gender to male on the planet. I already did that. So yeah, they cribbed. Well, they didn't crib it. They got the episode. It's like that's where they got it. But so this would be cool. Do this. Yeah, I didn't write it, but I discussed it somewhere and they found it. And they made it an episode of the whole story arc of the Orville. And it's like, well, the Morlocks, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, the couple and the gay lizard men on the ship. Yeah, we thought of that years ago. That was like a slash story years ago. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so yeah, if you want to do that, do that. But yeah, you wouldn't necessarily. There was an episode of the Orville that did a Next Generation episode where they went to a planet where they used social media to judge other people on the planet. That episode was a little bit of a hammer fist thing too, but they did it in a way that was trying to do Next Generation, and they had to get the guy off the planet. Get in trouble for being on the planet, breaking the Prime Directive. Kind of a similar idea. Next Generation, there was an episode where Data accidentally contaminates a planet with radiation because he's been damaged. He's a robot. He's damaged. They got to rescue him from this primitive planet. And there was an episode of the classic Trek where Kirk has to stop this Klingon invasion of a Native American like planet from giving guns and stuff, and it wasn't so much a parable of Native Americans giving them guns or ammo and fight primitive cultures, as it was a parable of Vietnam, because it was the '60s, and they were like, let's do a Vietnam thing. So give them. Clearly, the Klingons are supposed to be like these communist oppressor guys that took over. And it's clearly what they were trying to be back then. And now there were some episodes that were bad, though. I mean, they did that one where the gangs and the comms that was bad. They had the Yankees and the communists on this weird colony planet of Earth, and headcanon wise, Mark's Cards and I discussed that episode once, a couple of times. Probably what was going on there is it was a colony of Earth, like the Nazi planet in that one episode where they kind of did the hammer thing. It's a classic Trek did it on occasion too, where it's like, okay, yeah, well, you kind of, and those were third season episodes. So third season was a mess. They did a Spock's brain one. That wasn't anything. But yeah, doing issues in a Star Trek setting is, yeah, you have. With Transformers doing issues too, saying, okay, what I was getting at was give the Transformers human personalities, wants, dreams, desires, issues, and put them in a story. So it's like a Transformer soap opera where it's not a lot of battles and fighting and shooting and well, like they're trying to tell a story, or each episode is a story, and it's a character study where they're doing stuff, and it reflects the issues of the time. I'd imagine that most of these stories taking place from 2000 to 2004. Well, after 2001, we'll be dealing a little bit with the 9/11 and that kind of thing, and it'll be a sort of parable to that. It's 20 years later, so sure. Yeah, and the fact that these stories are 20 years later. We looked at some later ones that were in the 2014 period after the Michael Bay movies, but they were so heavily influenced by Armada and the Unicron trilogy remake and the other stuff that it didn't feel right. One of the earlier stuff to go in there. So no season 4, but we have these to do. So, so these the other one. No, we're not going to use any of those earlier angsty stuff. Yeah, some of the other short stories. Yeah, so nothing concerning Transformers was a problem. No authors complained. There were a couple fun ones back then, including an answer from Bobby Carruthers, who liked Transitions of Wrath and liked the Transitions adaptation. So that was well done. So yeah, cool. Yeah, way back, first season, Rob Powers watched the intentively his adaptation of his story, and said, yeah, War for Cybertron is basically corrosion. They just adapted it, pretty much. And the Netflix show is kind of the same thing. So they did a Netflix show. It's kind of similar, and it's kind of close. They have renegades and stuff and all that. And Transformers doing their own thing in their own multiverse. So it is a multiverse, which they did address. The one claim to fame about our stuff interacting War for Cybertron and the Netflix show is it was discussed many times while they were earlier on. They'd seen it. They understood Megatron and what Galvatron would react if you met Megatron, because we've done stuff like that before. And there's a line in there that's a Kla Kat line, which is awesome. Megatron and Galvatron meet in the dead zone, in dead space, which is kind of like the opposite of wrath. It's kind of like perdition. Wrath is where your emotions build up. The Decepticons become more ambitious and evil, and their plans become whereas the Autobots, their emotional ambitions become more amplified. So they don't want to take over. They just become more amplified. So if one of them's depressed, they become really depressed. One of them's happy, they become really happy. So it's different for the Autobots. Whereas the Decepticons are like, well, we want to rule everything, so we will become emperor of the universe in there. And it's not real. It's a fantasy. It's a shared hallucination. Ooh, ties in. Yes. So, and it's interesting that we did Assimilations as part of that Star Trek Meets the Transformers. We did that, which was awesome. Cool. I did watch Cybertronians all the way through, and except for a few minor little that I don't really care about, they're so minor. Leave them in. It's fine. There were just little blips here and there, but it's fine. There's no reason to redo it just for 2 or 3 little glips for a fraction of a second. Just chalk it up to recording error. Well, it was the audio error. Nothing wrong with the. It was great. Okay. It actually worked, and there was footage cribbed from A3 games and the zombie stuff and Grand Theft Auto. And buildings tumbling and stuff. All of that was fictional. All of that was taken from games. And they gave credit at the end. And said the games didn't give bylines, said credit at the end. Said, okay, this is from these visuals are from such and such a website. Freeware, warp speed stuff and whatever. But the footage of the weird shimmering light around the ship thing, that we did for the other story. Putting it in there. So, I was there. We did shoot some new stuff of the Emmett Till. Unfortunately, most of it turned out bad, so we couldn't use it. But yes, so that's why a lot of the footage looks like the old footage, because it is. It is the old footage. This stuff did not look good. There are some new shots, but the ship's big and hard to shoot. So here we have, what else I want to say about Transformers? I wanted to say something else. What was it? Wow, I've been going on a long time. Well, this is sort of a recap what's been going on the past month. So I'm sort of like shooting the shit about what I would do starting this season. And right next to the space bridge. But yeah, so this is not a problem. And since since the other story about the Fallen Ones episodes that they came up have now been appeared. Although Calavito as a response, saying I like it. I like it. Yeah. So I don't know how much of it he watched, but he said another person out here is talking about the same stuff about ancient aliens and giants and space aliens and all that. And I like that someone else is talking about that. It isn't just me. So cool. Also Andy White. The other guy commented. Similar. Kind of said, yeah, this is fine. I mean, it's fictional, but it's not what I would have done. Kind of like what Rob Powers said. That's odd. Yeah, Rob Powers. Yeah, he'd been watching, he'd watched it. He watched it all the way through. And just made some notes on the characters that I'd changed quite a bit. Because I didn't want to be exactly his character. And, yeah, he said, well, Lexius was more like Scattershot. He was like a red jet guy, but making him a dragon Optimus Prime is cooler. So that's way cooler. That actually works. That's actually cooler. Making the other Duocon guys, tiny little dudes, was a better choice. Overloaded. But giving him the sort of a Texas voice, which kind of wavered a little. He was supposed to sound like Johnny Bravo. Johnny Bravo is basically the character from a Cartoon Network show, who is a cross between Elvis and Steven Seagal. And he's basically running around going, whoa, little mama. But I made him, he started out kind of like the Elvis guy, but he sort of twarmered into just Clint Cowpoke after a while and just kind of sounded like Clint Cowpoke. Even though he's supposed to sound more like Elvis, somewhere like he's in Nashville or something, or Tennessee, than Texas. But, oh well. But yeah, and yeah, there were times in which he kind of contradicted himself and say something, robots don't have gender, and then at the very end, robots don't have gender. Well, they shouldn't technically have gender because Mark Cart said that. But the messed up IDW version of that, somebody asked about that. What do you think of the IDW version where they forced gender upon them and made them like angsty and stuff? And I was like, yeah, oh yeah, the IDW version. Oh, somebody asked about that. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Not the way they did that. I like the idea, the fan canon idea, that once the Transformers got to Earth, they merely started emulating what people were doing on Earth. They weren't like that before. And they just kind of, even though that doesn't explain the female Autobots who were obviously there millions of years earlier, so the Quintessons had to have had gender in order to teach them that. But yeah. but yeah, they technically shouldn't. They should be robots. They shouldn't have anything going on. Either way, they either reproduce through budding or building the other guys. The Dinobots were built, and they got personalities from somewhere. Probably other. I'm thinking other Autobots were like dead on the ship, and they just put their brains in them, but something like that. And that's where you can get road rage from. As one fan film pointed out, it was a very cool little series of short fan film enemies where they had a road rage. Probably more of the updated version of her. She's this little guy. Yeah, there's some fan films that have been inspired by us, which is awesome. And they're all, well, we can do stop motion ones. Yeah, we'll do them. We'll do them cooler than yours. And yeah, they're a lot of them are pretty cool. Yeah, but they take a lot of time, don't they? I mean, yeah, cool. You got like a 8-9 minute stop motion thing. It looks awesome, except for the backgrounds in a lot of cases. The sets aren't very nice, but sometimes they are. Sometimes they're fine. But it takes a long time to do a stop motion, really long time. So I just don't. I just go motion. It's gonna shoot. It's gonna move. It just moves. You don't need to worry about it. Yeah. So. But yeah. So yeah, the gender thing. That it's not that they're. No, none of them are transphobic. We are LGBT friendly, Q friendly on the set. Whenever Draconis Prime gets reborn, he just forgets about. He's been reborn 3 times during the series. He forgets about his origins and that he was totally bi. He just forgets. So that's what's going on. He just forgets. Yeah. No. The other guy's got to wander up to him and remind him. His ex is to wander up to him and go like, you know what? You said you didn't say that last week. Stop that. So yeah, they forget. So it's fine. Yeah, there's no anti-trans up there. It's in the title, Transformers. They're naturally fluid. You know, like Odo and the robot. Yes, because the scene where Swindle Hound, and Odo discuss being Transformers of a different stripe is clearly a message. Yes, it's a message, and it's in the story like that. I did not write that message. That was in the story. It was in that episode. That the two of them are trans, basically. Sure, and that's how you do it. They just addressed each other and went on, and there they are, and no big deal. They're different. They're trans. Odo's trans. Well, Odo was being played by Kla, which is funny. If Colavito sees this, no, I wasn't saying it was supposed to be him. It was Vita Cola, that character. Yeah, so he doesn't think that I'm making the real person off as that. You just to be sure I'm not doing it. No, he's the character in the story is playing an Odo. Yeah, the character, not the person. Different guy. I named him Vita Cola. He's a different guy. I don't know. But they have figured out who Cal was. And all years ago, they had it wrong. They thought it was this Cal Seeper guy. Or some other dude, even. It's like, nope. Oh. Never been... No, I've only been trolled briefly on occasion by the trolls from that Jason Colavito website. That actually found that Facebook messed with it. But not too much. Or messed with the YouTube or something. Usually it didn't end well because locked them. But yeah. That's just funny is do you get some comments, you put up any negative reviews? Because I don't want any negative reviews. I just delete the negative reviews. And actually with TransTech, I have not deleted any negative reviews. It's true. Yeah, there haven't been any. There was a negative review of not of the Transformers, but of a review that was left up too as well. So I have not deleted negative Transformer reviews. I have not. Unless they're stupid. Unless the negative review is like dumb, like, oh, you're just a stupid dumbhead or something. I'm like, okay. That's not constructive criticism to say that. Constructive criticism would be to say like, okay, your set doesn't look good, show more of the figures of the. A valid criticism would be like, well, why don't you have footage from the Transformers when you do a Transformers review or something? Well, we can't because we don't own that stuff. We're actually not shills for Hasbro at all. In fact, it's an entirely fan film. And some wondered, okay, how does he do that? How does he get away with it? This is the idea that he's like doing surreptitious guerrilla filmmaking Transformers adventures and Star Trek adventures, and he's allowed to put them up there, and the studio doesn't say anything. Well, they're not monetized. The studio doesn't care if we're not making any money on it. Each one of these are completely not monetized, and then they wonder how's it not monetized? How are you able to do this? Well, you see, a typical season of Alt Transformers MUSH and then Star Trek, Strange Worlds, Starship Strange Worlds takes is done in-house. We don't have any kind of crowdfunding or no Kickstarter, nothing. Entirely doing in-house. That's why it takes about a month or so to come up with more stuff because we're paying for them ourselves entirely. Not making any money at all. I mean, this little batch of toys here is probably cost more than it does to film them. So, but yes, I've rambled on testily. But it is coming, Season 3, Alt Transformers MUSH, better known as Transformers Lexicons. Transformers Lexicons, and it will have the angst of the originals. It will be different. Be unusual, and I'm sure there would be plenty of hitting the head with a message. But the message is going to be 20 years old because it's stuff from 2020. Hopefully nobody dies during any of these productions. It seems that we're always putting a byline thing at the end saying that, oh, this person passed away. I don't know. And I might have spelled Guilford Gottfried wrong in the credits to that other story. But we didn't know him. We just said, oh, this comedian died, Guilford Gottfried. So the guy that played Iago, the parrot, didn't know him. But yes. But that was in the previous one. Alt Transformers. There was a rapper that died during the second season. We didn't know him either, but we thought that, well, we'd heard the Rebel song and that kind of thing. And it'd be cool to put that up. And DMX or something, what was his name? Yeah, and we did a sort of a spoofy version of his song singing the Kill the God song. Kill the Space God song. It wasn't him, it was us that we did that. It's obviously not. It was Shubalafa. This version. Actually, the Jackass theme song has also been redone as a cover twice. And by them, too, that done up like that other one. It's a coincidence. We've also done a version of it. Yeah, so anyway, so that is the end. I'm done rambling. I'll see you on the set.